Hey guys, Francisco again. So now that we installed Visual Studio Code, or if you skipped over it because you already have it installed, that's great. We can continue moving on with the rest of the course. Now, previously I talked about the JavaScript operators, and it was just an introduction. And the cool thing about the JavaScript operators is that it ties into what we call the arithmetic and operator, I guess, chapter, but we'll talk more about comparison operators. And what that means is that we're comparing two values. As you can tell, we had a previous JavaScript. I don't know how to say it, like example or tutorial here, where we just kind of did a hello world for our node. And we're gonna just delete this on the server.js. We're gonna keep it. Go ahead and Control S so you can save it on a blank slate. And we'll go ahead and start working on on our tutorial today. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the comparison operator. And I do reflect a lot of the stuff that we're doing with the W3 schools because I think they have a really comprehensive material, and I would like for you guys to review that whenever you get the time. That way you just don't have what I show you, and you have a lot more information whenever you're trying to troubleshoot something that you're working on. I hope that you guys have been fiddling around with JavaScript, but if you haven't, that's fine. We're not really in a place where we can create a lot with what we've learned, but we can type in a lot of cool little things. Okay, so just a quick overview. The arithmetic operators are just, your plus, your minus, your subtraction, exponential, which is introduced on ES 2016. Division, modulus, which is a division remainder, increment, and decrement. These you really don't use. I guess you do use them. They're handy, especially when you're doing for loops and while loops and whatnot. And if we scroll down, we have the comparison operators, and we didn't really go over those. So if we can go into these in a little bit more detail, the comparison operators include the equal to, which is equals equals, which if you just do one single equals, that is the assignment operator. If you do triple equals, it's equal value and equal type. And I will go into detail about this. All right. So exclamation equals is not equals. Exclamations equals equals is not equal to the value or equal type. And then we have the greater than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or ternary operator. And for that, we'll go ahead and ignore that because I haven't really come into a situation where I had to use that. Okay. So, at least not yet. So, let's go ahead and start with this. So, you might want to go ahead and do a console log because essentially we're going to evaluate as an expression, okay? And the expression is var, and we'll put var is true, and then we'll do the true. All right. And then if we just evaluate our server.js, so we'll do a node, and this is not ideal, but it'll return back as true. All right. Cool. So, and if we change true to this, and if no, we don't have to do that actually. We can just put 3 equals 3, and it should evaluate this expression, and it should say true. True. Okay, cool. And then we do 3. And if you remember on what we were talking about, and is there a way I can make this bigger? Yeah, I kind of wish I could make this bigger here, but I don't know if there's a way. The appearance, is there a Zen mode? Nope. Center layout, no. Terminal output. I just look at the screen and it looks pretty small, but we won't worry about that. We'll just kind of carry on. There we go. So whenever we do the equals, the triple equal, is that we're equal value and equal type. Now, I'm highlighting the type because on equal type, what it means is these are not equal types. And if we evaluate this, if I save and evaluate, we'll see that's false because this is a string and this is a number. It's not the same. If we reduce it where we have the equals 2, it's not evaluating the value type. It's just evaluating the value, which is kind of silly, but if you save, and I know it's silly, but those things can make a difference because it's saying, okay, 3 is not a number, but it equals S3 as a string. And the thing with JavaScript is that it kind of is, it's very lax. So if I were to do something like, and I've explained it in the previous one, and I won't really go into detail on this, but if I set 3 plus the string 3, I'm going to get 33. I'm not going to get 6 because, oops, silly me. I violated X and then I consoled X, and that's 33 because it converted 3 into a string, and then if you combine two things together, it just kind of, it concatenates those two values, and it evaluates them as strings. So it's not a true mathematical operation, just for clarification purposes. Okay, cool. So now we're gonna do is not equals. So if I do the not equals on this, what do you think would happen? Because the single equals on the not equal, it does not evaluate for the type. So like Dora the Explorer, I'm gonna ask you, hey, what does this do? What is my console log gonna evaluate if I just evaluate, oops, is true? Is 3 equals to string 3? Is number 3 equals to, not equals to string 3? And let's go ahead and evaluate. False. Did that blow anybody's mind? Yeah. Well, because it does equal. So when you're saying is not, that means that it's going to be the exact opposite. So, yeah. So if I were to do 4, that's probably a good one. It'll evaluate as true because 3 is not equals to 4, but number 3 is not is equals to string 3. Therefore, it's not equal. So it's kind of tricky. I mean, you got to kind of wrap your mind around it, where you're trying to understand that it's not evaluating this. So, for example, this was not equal, and it gave me 3. But if I run it again, I'm gonna get a false. So it's pretty much like the reverse of these. I don't really want to go too much into detail. I think you should really play with these. You should really play with these values, because essentially this is a positive and this is a negative. If you're like a pure mathematical person, then you'll understand what that means between the, I guess, graphs or whatever you want to call it. But yes, these are essentially they're opposites of each other. So they come in handy. I use them a lot for evaluating certain conditions for states of certain functions and variables. But I definitely would want you guys to do this on your own and then just kind of set up like a little workbook where you're evaluating these. And let's just go past these and go into the greater than. So 3 is greater than 4. And is that true? False. No, it's not. Now, if we change this to -4, true. 3 is greater than -4. Okay? So, let's see what happens with 3. False, because they're not greater than. Because 3 is not greater than 3. They're the exact same value. But whenever you put in the greater or equal to, get a true. And if you haven't taken like an algebra class, I would definitely recommend this because taking an algebra class, because it would definitely help you visualize this. And when it comes to greater or equal to, I think that's a good idea. So I think this is fairly explanatory. If you need to get used to it, which I also wasn't like, okay, I get this, I am ready to go and start programming with the comparison operators. It took me a while to understand how to apply them in different situations when you're engineering different solutions. So it's going to take a while. I would definitely recommend getting used to it. So whenever you're stuck somewhere, you're trying to figure out, hey, how can I stop a loop from executing once I have a certain condition that is met? And that is the comparison operators. Always use them for meeting certain conditions and comparing when your condition is okay. So when you can say, okay, stop, you reach the finish line, because otherwise your computer's going to keep running or it's not going to do it sufficient times. And I know it's very vague, but it's something that you want to keep in mind. So practice those. Let me know how it goes. If you have any questions, please let me know. I would be happy to answer them. And we're going to go into the logical operators, I think maybe next time, because I kind of want to keep these. You know what? Let's just do it right now. So logical operators is and, or not. So we know when to use not. We kind of used it. But and, or. And what does this mean? So I can put, 3 equals 3, or 4 is 4. And all of these are true, right? So our evaluation is going to be true. Okay, so what about 3? This is true, but this is false. What is it going to evaluate to? True. And because the logical operator is or, so it's going to take the result of this and the result of this. And if this one is true, it doesn't matter if this one's false. Vice versa. If this one's true, it doesn't matter if this one was false. It's still going to return, because you're basing your condition on, like, I just need one condition. And of course, you can pipe it into another one, which will do X. And that's not. And You can also, to elaborate more, var x, because you're not just limited to something, var y. You're just not limited to using hard-coded numbers and hard-coded strings. You can also type in variables, so it can be dynamic. So you don't exactly have to just use that. And of course, this is false, but I only have one true, and that's all I need in order to evaluate this expression as true. There we go. Okay, so then we go into the AND. And then we have to meet all these conditions in order for this to be true. So this has to be true, this has to be true, and this has to be true. And we know that it's not true. That is false. Okay? And if we remove it to just one, we have just one condition that is true. But we need all of these to be true. So it's still false. And until we have one condition, we have all conditions that are satisfied as true, then this will return as true. So that is the logical operator and logical OR and logical NOT we already went over. And the way that we can do logical NOT is evaluate as true is if we had something. I know on view we would use a function, so let's do this. var eval equals 10 equals to 10. And we know that eval is true. And it returns as false because technically it just kind of reverses what you have. So let me switch it. So that's false, but it's going to be negative. So what happens when you make two negatives? You get a positive, right? So we'll do that, and it's true. Please. It still confuses me sometimes. So I don't know if you guys might be smarter than me. So kudos to that. Everybody picks it up at a faster pace, but for me it took me a while. So please evaluate the logical NOT. Do some testing with that, because I think that definitely gets certain people, and I'm not the only one that it's gotten with its gotchas. So bitwise operators, they work in 32-bit numbers. So I'm not really going to go into these because I don't really use them. I'm not really hardcore into a lot of numerical functions. So I don't really use these. But if you want to look into it, and if we reach a certain part of our tutorial that we need to use these, I will definitely cover these. But so far, we don't really need to use these so far. We're getting closer to where we can start our project. So thank you so much for hanging out and sticking with the tutorial if you have. Let me know if you have any questions with the evaluation expression, the evaluation the logical operators and the evaluations. That way we can go into the next bit of this tutorial and start developing actual applications instead of just messing around. Alrighty guys, thank you so much for sticking around and watching, and of course hit the subscribe button and like this video so I can get more content going. Thanks guys.